welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, 11 days after the Uri attack, India struck back with surgical strikes at terror launch pads across the LOC, killing around 40 plus terrorists along with their supporters. This has drastically changed the rules of engagement with India and Pakistan, when India has shown that we will no longer be a punching bag, we can and we will hit back. Joining me for this on the roundtable is Rajiv Chandrasekhar. He is an independent MP from the Rajya Sabha. We have Subramaniam Swamy, BJP leader and Rajya Sabha MP. We have Jay Panda, who is a leader from the BJD and also an MP from the Lok Sabha. And also we have Pawan Verma, who is a leader from the JDU. Rajiv, I'm going to begin with you first. Can you first explain, there's a lot of confusion into what is a surgical strike, what is artillery fire. There's been a lot of confusion on this issue. So we went in for a surgical strike. Exactly what does that mean?
No, I think surgical strike it involves use of specialized commandos and special forces that are inserted with a specific mission, targeted at a specific target to minimize collateral damage. It is not the conventional warfare where armies roll in announcing their presence. This is silent, stealth, and very directed and precise. And it uses, as we have now begun to find out, it uses very specialized units in the Indian Army called the para-commandos, also known as the Red Berets and the Special Forces.
Okay, and your reaction to this?
No, I've written about it, and I think I spoke a whole day about it yesterday, going waxing eloquent about what a great thing this is. Wax
eloquent a bit more.
Yeah, wax eloquent about what a good thing this is, because I think for the last several years, we have reduced doing nothing to a security doctrine called strategic restraint. It's an interesting phenomenon where inaction is translated into a security doctrine. And I think for the first time, India is demonstrating, not just to the external world and to Pakistan, but also to inside India, that we not only have the capability to do these things, but we have the political will and the gumption to take the fight to the terrorists if that is required. For too many years, I think the country and the army and the political class had begun to believe that we are incapable of doing anything but whine in the face of Pakistani terrorism.
Dr. Swamy, what was the thinking behind this? Since when was it planned, from that speech of Prime Minister Modi's?
No, it's, see, the contingency plans are always there in the ministries. The defense ministries, as he said, that the special services unit has always been various alternatives, and they are all, you just have to take a printout almost like that. The issue was that at some stage, not the near recent past, but I would say over the last 6 months, Modi had begun toying with the idea that the Pakistanis, we have done about as much as we can, and they are not going to change because of the structure inside, which he himself started articulating by saying that the political authority has no, I think it's Rawalpindi's cantonment which is running the government, and so those things, and that they are separate parts, Baluchi and Pakhtunistan and so on, in his last speech. So there was a transition, and then being Modi, he is a man, if he makes up his mind, it's very difficult for anyone to change it. He came to a conclusion, and then he took two of his senior most colleagues in the dealing with this area in the cabinet, and they took the decision.
Jay, you've been also writing about this even before the strike took place also. What do you have to say about the timing of this? We wait till Sushma Swaraj comes back. That's, there is a diplomatic offensive and then we do this.
Well, I think the timing is as close to perfect as it could have been, because it was not knee-jerk. It allowed for those 10-11 days for the diplomatic offensive, which was quite effective. Sushma ji's speech at the UN was phenomenal, and the Prime Minister's speech also, where he raised the tone, he took the high road, as a Prime Minister ought to, in talking about the war. War should be about poverty and all of that. And it set the stage for the armed forces, the commandos that Rajiv was talking about, to plan their operation, and as has been said, to strike at a time of our convenience. When I wrote about this, it was just a day before the attack took place across the LOC. My point was that we have to break out of this strategic gridlock that we have been in since 1998. Because since both Pakistan and India became nuclear powers, Pakistan has taken it to a perverse extent. If you look at the Cold War dynamic, the nuclear doctrine was that both sides exercise restraint, because if it escalates, it can become a doomsday scenario. Pakistan, like a crazed person holding a gun to its head, used its nuclear cover to continually push its proxies to keep attacking India. Mumbai 2611, Pathankot, and any number of dozens of other incidents that we all know we have been pinched. And all we could ever do was only respond in words, because of the fear that if you do anything more, it can keep getting escalated. But the point is, between doing nothing and just saying words, and between escalating to a war scenario, there is plenty of headroom to do many other things. And that strategic headroom was not being explored at all. It's a good thing that this decision was taken. The capability has been there for some time. It was a political decision, political will that was necessary. And it's a good thing. Covert operations is only one aspect. And this is one example. It perhaps can also include other examples in the future. But there are so many other ways that the pressure can be ratcheted up. As has been said by some important political commentators, this terror option was a cheap option for Pakistan to bleed us. Now, we have to make it costly. It can't remain a cheap option for them. I'm glad that across the political spectrum, everybody in India is supporting this.
Dave, I just want to add one thing. According to my understanding, you may be right or may be wrong, the timing was not taken, the date was not decided by the politicians. It was decided
No, I didn't say that. I just said that as far as India is concerned, it worked out well because the time was given to the armed forces.
When you're ready, tell us.
Yes.
They told us.
So just a coincidence, it happened the day Sushma landed back from there.
That's right.
Okay, that's interesting. Pawan, you know, I've seen you usually being critical of Prime Minister Modi. So are you also going to be appreciating the strike on this, or?
No, I think that in a democracy, you can have several opinions on issues, but on this particular action taken by the government, I have publicly, and so has Mr. Nitish Kumar, unreservedly congratulated the central government and our brave armed forces for the decisive action against terrorism. The nation comes first, and while in a democracy, there can be many views on how to act or what to do. There are occasions also when the whole nation unites.
Right.
My own personal view is that, as many of people spoke here today, you see, Pakistan had perfected a policy of explosive aggression and tactical appeasement. And India seemed to be falling flat between two stools because it was an asymmetrical conflict. They were using proxies and terrorism to inflict, as per their doctrine, 1,000 cuts. And India didn't really find the right pace in which to respond. So we had what is called dossier diplomacy. We showed restraint not only earlier.
And
I really think
mango and the shawl diplomacy.
This goes beyond parties. I mean, I would, for instance, believe that in the Kargil war, when there was verifiable intrusion into our territory, the right thing would have been to go and seal the line of control to the extent possible in order to cut off supplies to the infiltrators, rather than arguing your case of getting certificates of restraint from the chancelleries of the world, because it was certain that 1,000 or more of the flower of your armed forces, the soldiers and the young officers, would be meeting a certain death, trying to gain the vantage points where the Pakistani troops were planned. Similarly, I would say that after Pathankot and so on and so forth, we keep trying to find the right response and hoping that reason would prevail rather than. So I think that logjam has been broken from. And for once we've shown that against their policy, which is clear, which is consistent, we can come out with a measured, effective, strategically planned and well-delivered response.
Okay. Rajiv, Jay spoke about this being the cheap option or whatever. What next? What else can we do to follow it up? I mean, there are already moves that isolating them on
No,
the
I think there is a growing realization that Pakistan is vulnerable in more ways than one. It is that we have not exploited those vulnerabilities. The diplomatic isolation of Pakistan clearly shows that there is very little support, residual support left for Pakistan, excepting for maybe China. But the point here is that Pakistan today is economically a basket case and is very, very vulnerable to a concerted international and our own actions against them on trade, on finance, on even issues like the Indus Water Treaty. And I have argued that India has multiple tools in its toolkit. We have the diplomatic option, which we have rolled out and it is paying dividends. We have the military option that has been exercised and it is now out there for everybody to see. And we have the economic options. We should review and repeal the MFN status. We should review the Indus Water Treaty. We should make financial transactions between citizens of Pakistan and any entity in India illegal. So there are many ways to choke Pakistan. Slow, steady, not to meet the news headlines, timelines of television channels or newspapers. But there is a way to get Pakistan to understand that this strategy of theirs is an expensive strategy and not a cheap one, as Jay has pointed out, that they've been led to believe all these years.
I slightly disagree that Pakistan is completely internationally isolated. It's a goal that we should aim to achieve. I mean, China has been an all-weather friend of Pakistan. And the United States, for all its occasional homilies on both sides, should have a dialogue and Pakistan should not sponsor terror, does very little to actually put pressure on Pakistan, which it can do. And there have been occasions when Pakistan has cocked the snook at the United States. When a drone attack killed a few Pakistani soldiers, for 6 months they prevented supplies reaching Afghanistan through Pakistan, and America finally almost was pleading to be once again back in their good books. So I believe that the isolation of Pakistan, which requires a diplomatic blitzkrieg, should proceed in parallel. There is a need for maximum vigilance. This is not the time for euphoria. This is the time to plan and not gloat, to in a sense be proud but not boast, because we are dealing with a very unstable state, Priya. We are dealing with a state which is a rogue state in many ways, and we should keep that factor in mind.
Priya, I just want to clarify. I did not say that we have isolated Pakistan. I am saying that the process of isolating Pakistan is clearly underway. The world today is fed up with anybody who aids and abets terrorism in such an obvious manner. I am not saying China has stopped supporting Pakistan, but it is not in China's interest, and they realize that, to continue to make a case of supporting a country that has been named and shamed all over the world.
Yeah, I think first of all, I would think that the government of India would be more than satisfied if the international support or for us, or the international isolation of Pakistan is passive. We don't want an active American involvement to say to Pakistan, lay off. We can deal with them militarily without any difficulty. As far as China is concerned, if you compare their statement this time with that in the case of 1971 or even 65, it's a very mild statement. And they have in fact advocated that Pakistan and India should talk. Now, there is a factor which we have not exploited as far as China is concerned, and that is China's great personal anger, the bilateral anger on the Pakistan trained terrorists going into Xinjiang. And when I have been to China, they have articulated that. So they have a problem with us that India is today appears to be very close to America, and that this would cause a problem for them in their disputes with Japan and other places.
Okay, well, that was a non-gloating Dr. Swamy. But going on, there is a fear from people that this may escalate tensions. I'm sure that was also taken into account. Given that, the fact that we went ahead, how do you see that?
Well, if you look at the response in Pakistan for the last 24 hours, it's all denial that any such surgical strike took place. And I see that as a good sign, because if they were to admit that a surgical strike took place, then the process starts of building up to some kind of a response. If they deny, and many people have called Pakistan's real name ought to be denialistan, the way they deny that terrorism, they support terrorism. I think it's a good thing. It gives them a face saver that this attack didn't take place, and thus there has to be no response. Look, really, there is quite a bit of room between doing nothing and doing so much that it becomes an uncontrollable cycle, vicious cycle of escalation. There's plenty that can be done. Now, we should not be cocky. we should not take it for granted that our problems are solved. Pakistan has enjoyed this strategy for so long, and it has gone into the DNA of many of their decision makers, particularly in their armed forces and ISI, that it will be hard to wean them off it so easily. But this isolation is a measurable thing that has happened, and I agree it is not fully done yet. It's a work in progress. Let me give you an example. I was a couple of weeks ago in the US with a delegation of Indian MPs, and every senator we spoke to, every congressman we spoke to, everybody in the administration that we spoke to, every media person, every think tank person that we spoke to, they all said they have their real anger against Pakistan because every American getting killed in Afghanistan is being killed by a Pakistan proxy, the Haqqani network. And we heard it articulated that unless Pakistan is made to pay a price higher than it is paying already, it is not going to change its ways. So this is the first disruption of the strategy that Pakistan has deployed for decades, and it's just the first step.
Okay, we're going to discuss more on what next, but after a short break. Welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, we are here discussing India's response to the attack on Uri and also what can we do next. Pawan, coming back to that, what next is really now in the diplomatic and the strategic arena really? We've been discussing some of the options. What else can we do?
No, I think there are 3 or 4 things which I'm sure the government would factor in. First of all, this is not a declaration of war. I think the government has been very clear in saying it, that they took preemptive action against what they saw to be terrorist bases launching pads against India.
Correct.
And I think that should be maintained in spite of the rather visible and vociferous warmongering lobby. So that balance in terms of strategic policy needs to be maintained. Secondly, I think that our armed forces and their requirements really need to be looked at, because they would be on the line and there will be need for maximum vigilance. And so far, I believe many of their requirements have been neglected, and I believe that they should also be freed from law and order, tasks being given to them in the valley, which is not their writ or their training. Thirdly, I think we must in parallel not let down at all in our diplomatic assault, in the diplomatic offensive in the capitals. The evidence that we were giving to Pakistan was water off a duck's back. That evidence needs to be given to those capitals which can exercise pressure, because remember, Hafiz Saeed is roaming around free in Pakistan with a UN bounty on its head. Have we leveraged the global community sufficiently to point out that great anomaly, and especially to the United States, which claims to be in the forefront of the fight against global terror? So I think more needs to be done. And lastly, I think what we will do now will have greater credibility, because ultimately other nations respect those nations who can stand up on their own to fight for their sovereignty and what they consider to be their self-respect.
Finally, Rajiv, were you expecting Prime Minister Modi to act like this? Because, we've had provocations in the past, Vajpayee twice, Manmohan Singh did not also. Did you see this happening, or how did you interpret that speech?
Obviously, it's easy for us to say, hindsight, yes, I knew this was going to happen. But I think most of us knew that the response of this government would be markedly different from previous governments. That it would not be a rush to the United Nations and fall at the feet of the superpowers and say, save us, save us. It was in the works that there would be a military response. In all of his speeches leading up to the event, he said that the 18 men, their death and sacrifice will not go unpunished. And he did exactly that. And the government of India and the armed forces did exactly what the Prime Minister of India promised that they would do.
But see, Dr. Swamy, in Pathankot, he did not do that much. So, what changed? Was it that this was enough is enough, or?
Well, first of all, you have to look at the structure of the BJP. It's unlike every other political party in the sense there are many, I won't call them centers of power, but there are many sub-organizations which give opinions which matter. It depends on what force they state it.
So was this RSS pressure on Modi?
No, there's not question. This time they were all the Parivar organizations were of one view. Something has to be done this time. Otherwise, just say goodbye. And Modi has always been, in my opinion, a very decisive person when he is convinced. And if I can take you a little afar on the Raghuram Rajan issue, everybody, including Mr. Obama, were on one side, and he just took the decision.
I'm trying to figure the link between Raghuram Rajan and this, but anyway, let
Yeah,
me get away with it.
it's a decisiveness. You see, I can give you other examples.
No, I'm
Once his
I'm
mind
buying
is made up, once his mind is made up, he you know, and he had gone how far, and he was made fun of so much. He went so far to extend his hand to the Pakistanis, and they betrayed him.
So what next, what Pawan said on Hafiz Saeed?
Hafiz Saeed is a kind of a symptom.
But
The
he's
real
the
question
symbol
is,
also.
no, I am telling you where the problems are going to come. Tomorrow we give asylum to the Baluchis, and that's very close. We have already got requests from Sindh and Pakhtunistan. So, and then the Iranians have started now bombarding Pakistani. You know, yesterday, this morning, I think the Iranians have bombed Baluchistan, Pakistan positions. So, the Iranians, then the Afghanis, the Bangladeshis, all Muslim countries, they are with us on this. In fact, a little, they are pushing us much more than we are ourselves pushing out. So, will this stop with this surgical operation? No. There's more to come.
More.
And yes, more to come. And
More surgical operations to come.
ultimately, the equation between the army and the civilian authority in Pakistan has to be resolved in favor of the civilian authority.
I think
That's a
it's
tall one.
important to see what's going to happen within Pakistan.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because with this kind of strike, which they are not acknowledging, Raheel Sharif is retiring in 3 months.
That's right.
There's a very weak
He
civilian
wants an
government.
extension.
What it does to power equations within Pakistan also needs to be watched very carefully.
Okay, Jay, final word to you before we close.
Well, anybody who thought that this Prime Minister would just follow the same playbook that has been done by many of his predecessors was living in a fool's paradise. And
Well, he did lull us after Pathankot.
no,
so
I don't think so.
No?
The reason is this: if on coming in he would have straight away taken the offensive, he would have been considered a warmonger. No matter that other prime ministers of India had held themselves back and India had suffered, but he had to prove his credentials as a peacemaker. And I think nobody can question that he did more than, much more than what was expected and what could have been expected. And only after proving to the world and proving to Pakistan and Pakistanis that here we extend our arm of friendship and it's not getting reciprocated, at some point the patience had to break. Now, I think Pathankot was the point where the patience started breaking. Some last-ditch efforts were being taken, and this, of course, after Uri, it broke. And I think it is completely characteristic of the person that after exploring all other options, this hard option was taken, and a lot more can be done.
Uri compelled him also. I mean, it's not as if after Pathankot, frankly, and I'm not getting into partisan politics, I will respect the decision the Prime Minister has taken and even felicitate him on it. But inviting a Pakistani team into Pathankot, now in hindsight everything seems to be part of a pre-planned jigsaw puzzle. I thought that was neither required, and it was certainly strategic innocence of a kind rarely seen, with an ISI representative in tow. But that apart, this is not the time to cavil about it or certainly glorify everything in the past as right. We are now at a new inflection point.
Yes,
It's a watershed moment. How do we go forward? That's the challenge from here.
And that's something which we've been trying to decode in this roundtable, but I'm afraid we've run out of time. So thank you for watching this show. We'll see you again same time next week.